Hello, English learners. Welcome back. I'm Sarah, and today we're going to talk about speaking English with advanced fluency in your daily life. This lesson is all about helping you sound natural, confident, and clear when you use English every single day. Think of this as your personal fluency training session, where I'll guide you step by step as if we were sitting together, practicing in real time. At the advanced level, fluency is not just about knowing many words. It's about how you use those words, how smoothly you connect ideas, and how natural you sound when you speak. Many learners at this stage can already understand English well, but they sometimes feel stuck when trying to express themselves fully. You may feel that you pause too often, search for the right word, or hesitate because you want to sound correct. This is completely normal, and together we'll work through it. Let's start with one important idea: rhythm. Fluent English speech has a natural rhythm, almost like music. Advanced speakers don't just use words, they use pauses, stress, and intonation to make their ideas easy to follow. For example, listen to the difference between "I want to go to the store later," said very flat, and the same sentence with natural rhythm: "I want to go to the store later." Notice how the small pauses create clarity. At C1 level, fluency is about mastering this rhythm so you don't sound mechanical. Another key aspect is paraphrasing. At this level, you don't always need to use the perfect word immediately. Instead, if you can't remember the exact word, you explain the idea in another way. For example, imagine you can't remember the word frustrated. You could say, "I felt really annoyed because things weren't working." This is fluent because you keep speaking smoothly instead of stopping to translate. Advanced speakers often use paraphrasing without realizing it, and it keeps the conversation natural. Let's practice this together. I'll give you a word, and then I'll describe it using different expressions. Listen carefully, and then try to shadow me, repeating after I pause. Ready? The word is generous. Listen. She is very generous. She often gives her time to others. She's the kind of person who shares what she has without expecting anything in return. Did you hear how I described the same idea in different ways? That's paraphrasing. Now you try repeating. She is very generous. She often gives her time to others. She's the kind of person who shares what she has without expecting anything in return. Excellent. At C1, it's also time to refine your connectors. Connectors are the glue that hold your sentences together. Instead of only saying and or but, you can use although, however, in fact, on the other hand, as a result, nevertheless. For instance, these words make your speaking sound more advanced, and they help your ideas flow logically. For example, "I was tired, nevertheless I continued working because the deadline was close." Doesn't that sound more precise than just saying but? This is what makes advanced English stand out. Let's do a quick connector practice. Repeat after me. Although I was nervous, I gave the presentation confidently. Good. In fact, It went better than I expected. Nice. On the other hand, I know I still need to improve my timing. Excellent. Every time you use these connectors, you make your speech more engaging and structured. Now let's move into idiomatic expressions. At C1, fluency also means being comfortable with natural phrases that native speakers use daily. Idioms bring color to your speech, but they must be used correctly and in the right context. For example, to hit the nail on the head means to describe exactly the main point. Imagine someone says, "The problem with our team is poor communication." You could reply, "Yes, you really hit the nail on the head with that comment." That sounds fluent, confident, and advanced. Another useful one is to be up in the air. If you say, "Our holiday plans are still up in the air," it means they are uncertain, not decided yet. These idioms make your English sound alive, but don't overuse them. Think of them as seasoning in your language, just enough to add flavor, not too much to confuse the listener. Let's shadow some idioms together. Repeat after me. She really hit the nail on the head. Good. Our holiday plans are still up in the air. Perfect. Learning idioms adds color to your English. Excellent. At this stage, pronunciation becomes even more important. Fluency is not only about speed, but also about clarity. If you speak quickly, but your words are unclear, people will struggle to follow you. Practice speaking at a steady pace with clear pronunciation of stressed syllables. For instance, say the word communication. Notice how the stress is on TA, communication. Advanced speakers pay attention to stress patterns to avoid misunderstandings. Let's practice some advanced vocabulary with proper stress. Repeat after me slowly. Responsibility, opportunity, determination, flexibility. Notice the stress each time. Keep shadowing until it feels natural. This type of practice sharpens your fluency more than just learning new words passively. Another way to boost fluency is by mastering functional language for daily life. Functional language is about how you handle everyday interactions in a natural way. For example, when giving your opinion, you could say, "From my perspective," or "It seems to me that." When agreeing politely, you could say, "I couldn't agree more," or "That's a valid point." These small phrases build confidence and help you sound smooth in conversation. Imagine you're in a discussion. Someone says, "I think technology has made life more stressful." You could respond, "That's a valid point, although I'd argue it also creates convenience in many ways." This shows fluency, balance, and advanced control of language. Let's practice shadowing again. Repeat after me. From my perspective, learning English is a journey. Good. It seems to me that daily practice really helps with fluency. Excellent. That's a valid point, but there's another side to consider. Perfect. These are the kinds of phrases that make your English sound sophisticated, but still natural. At the advanced level, learners often struggle with hesitation. You may pause with or too often. Instead, train yourself to use natural fillers that sound fluent. For example, use phrases like, well, you know, or let's see. These keep the flow natural while you think. For instance, well, I think the movie was interesting, but it could have been shorter. Or, you know, I've always believed that daily practice is the key to improvement. These sound natural and give you time to plan your next sentence. Let's try it together. Repeat. Well, I think learning English is like exercising a muscle. Good. You know, practice every day makes a big difference. Excellent. Let's see, I'd probably choose reading as my favorite activity. Perfect. Did you notice how natural these fillers sound? They are part of real, advanced conversation flow. Fluency is also about listening deeply. When you listen well, you respond more naturally, with less hesitation. Try shadowing native content, podcasts, movies, interviews. Don't just focus on the words, but also on the tone, rhythm, and how speakers manage pauses. When you copy this rhythm, you build an instinct for fluent speaking. Let's practice with a short dialogue. I'll say a line, then pause for you to shadow it. Ready? A. Do you have any plans for the weekend? Repeat it. Good. B. Not yet. Things are still up in the air. Repeat. Excellent. A. Well, if you're free, let's go hiking. Repeat. Great. This kind of practice simulates real conversation and strengthens your fluency instinct. Before we continue further, let me give you a friendly reminder. If you're enjoying this lesson, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more daily English practice. It helps us grow, and it ensures you don't miss any of our upcoming lessons designed to take your English to the next level. All right, let's keep building. Another key to C1 fluency is expanding the range of tone you can use. Advanced speakers shift their tone depending on context. You may sound formal in a business meeting, but more casual with friends. Being able to adjust tone shows high-level control. For example, in a formal setting, you might say, I would appreciate it if you could clarify this point. In casual speech, you'd simply say, can you explain that a bit more? Both are correct, but the tone changes the impact. Try repeating with me. I would appreciate it if you could clarify this point. Good. Can you explain that a bit more? Excellent. Feel the difference? This flexibility is what makes you fluent in real life, not just in textbooks. Another powerful feature of advanced fluency is your ability to soften or strengthen your message depending on the situation. This is called hedging and emphasis. Hedging is when you make your language less direct, which is useful in polite or formal contexts. For example, instead of saying, you are wrong, you could say, I'm not entirely sure I agree with that. Or, perhaps we should look at it another way. These expressions are softer, but they keep the conversation respectful and professional. On the other hand, emphasis is when you want to sound more certain and strong in your opinion. For example, instead of saying, I think it's important, you could say, it's absolutely essential, or there is no doubt that this will help us succeed. This advanced control of tone allows you to adapt your speech to any context, whether academic, professional, or social. Let's practice both styles together. Repeat after me. I'm not entirely sure I agree with that. Good. Perhaps we should look at it another way. Excellent. Now let's shift to emphasis. It's absolutely essential to practice daily. Perfect. There is no doubt that fluency comes from consistency. Excellent. Did you hear the difference? This control helps you sound confident, but also flexible, depending on your needs. At C1 level, storytelling is another skill that separates advanced speakers from intermediate ones. When you tell a story, you connect ideas, use sequence markers, and bring in detail that makes your listener engaged. Think about how you would tell someone about a trip. Instead of just saying, "I went to London. It was nice." You expand. "Last summer, I had the chance to visit London. At first, I was overwhelmed by the crowds, but soon I got used to the energy of the city. The highlight was standing near the Thames at night, watching the lights reflect on the water. It's a memory I'll always keep with me." Doesn't that sound vivid and fluent? Let's shadow this together. Repeat after me. "Last summer, I had the chance to visit London." Good. "At first, I was overwhelmed by the crowds, but soon I got used to the energy of the city." Excellent. "The highlight was standing near the Thames at night, watching the lights reflect on the water." Perfect. "It's a memory I'll always keep with me." Wonderful. Notice how the details create flow and make the story engaging. A practical exercise for you is to practice telling short, daily stories. Describe what happened in your morning, your journey to work, or a conversation you had with a friend. Use connectors like first, after that, later on, finally, and descriptive language to paint a picture. This habit will strengthen both your fluency and your confidence in extended speech. Let's try one together. Imagine your day started with a surprise. Repeat after me. "This morning, I woke up to the sound of heavy rain." Good. "At first, I felt disappointed because I had planned to go jogging." Excellent. "However, instead of staying upset, I decided to make a hot coffee and read a book by the window." Perfect. "By the time the rain stopped, I was already feeling calm and refreshed." Excellent. This is how storytelling adds richness to your fluency. At this stage, you should also focus on discourse markers. These are words and phrases we use to organize our ideas and guide the listener. Examples include actually, basically, by the way, anyway, to be honest, on top of that, as far as I know, in my opinion. Advanced speakers use them naturally, without thinking, and they make the conversation flow smoothly. Let's practice shadowing a few discourse markers in sentences. Repeat after me. "Actually, I think the meeting could have been shorter." Good. "To be honest, I was expecting a different result." Excellent. "By the way, have you seen the new film everyone is talking about?" Perfect. "On top of that, we still have to finish the project by Friday." Wonderful. You see how these markers add clarity and direction to your speaking. Another challenge many advanced learners face is register. Register means adjusting your level of formality depending on the context. For example, in an academic essay, you might write, "The results demonstrate a clear correlation between study time and performance." But in casual speech with a friend, you'd say, "The more you study, the better you do." Both are correct, but the register is different. Mastering this shift is a key feature of advanced fluency. Let's practice with an example. I'll give you a sentence in formal register, and then I'll adapt it into casual speech. Repeat both after me. It is evident that practice improves performance. Good. It's clear that practice helps you improve. Excellent. This evidence suggests a strong connection between motivation and success. Good. Motivation and success are definitely linked. Excellent. This flexibility shows true command of English. Another area to develop is nuanced vocabulary. At C1 level, it's time to move beyond common words and choose more precise ones. For example, instead of always saying good, you can say beneficial, effective, advantageous, or valuable, depending on the situation. Instead of bad, you might say harmful, ineffective, or unfavorable. Each word carries a slightly different shade of meaning, and using them accurately shows advanced fluency. Let's practice. Repeat after me. Daily practice is beneficial for long-term progress. Good. This technique is highly effective in improving fluency. Excellent. Skipping practice can be harmful to your confidence. Perfect. The result was unfavorable because we didn't prepare well. Excellent. With each word, notice how the nuance changes the meaning slightly. This is what makes advanced English powerful. At this level, you should also pay attention to collocations. Collocations are word combinations that naturally go together, like make progress, take responsibility, heavy rain, strong argument. Advanced speakers use collocations automatically without translating. For example, you don't say do progress, you say make progress. You don't say big rain, you say heavy rain. These small details make your English sound natural and fluent. Let's shadow some collocations together. Repeat after me. Make progress. Good. Take responsibility. Excellent. Heavy rain. Perfect. Strong argument. Wonderful. Now put them in sentences. She has made a lot of progress this year. Good. He always takes responsibility for his actions. Excellent. We had to stay inside because of the heavy rain. Perfect. That was a strong argument during the debate. Excellent. With collocations, your fluency becomes smoother and more natural. Another advanced fluency skill is reformulating. This means saying something in a different way to make sure the listener understands. It's especially useful in discussions, presentations, or when you feel your point wasn't clear. For example, you could say, in other words, daily practice is like exercising a muscle. It grows stronger with use. Or, to put it another way, vocabulary is like a toolbox, and the more tools you have, the easier it is to build sentences. Reformulating shows flexibility and ensures your message is clear, let's practice shadowing reformulation. Repeat. In other words, daily practice builds fluency like exercise builds strength. Good. To put it another way, vocabulary is a toolbox you use to build communication. Excellent. What I mean is that fluency grows through small, consistent steps. Perfect. Reformulation is one of the most practical techniques for advanced conversations. At C1 level, you should also practice dealing with unexpected situations in conversation. Sometimes people will ask you questions you didn't prepare for. Instead of freezing, you can buy time with natural expressions like, "That's an interesting question. Let me think." Or, "Well, I haven't thought about it before, but I'd say." These phrases keep you fluent even when you're surprised. Let's practice. Repeat. "That's an interesting question. Let me think." Good. "Well, I haven't thought about it before, but I'd say it depends on the context." Excellent. I'd need to consider both sides before answering fully. Perfect. These natural responses give you time while keeping the conversation flowing smoothly. Finally, advanced fluency is about confidence. You need to trust your English and let go of the fear of making mistakes. Remember, even native speakers make small mistakes or change their words mid-sentence. The difference is they don't stop speaking. They keep going. They self-correct naturally, and they focus on communication. At this stage, your goal is not perfection, but flow. The more you practice shadowing, paraphrasing, and storytelling, the more natural your English will feel every day. So let's practice a final mini dialogue for this section. Repeat after me. A. What's the best way to become fluent in English? Good. B. Well, to put it another way, fluency is like fitness. You have to train daily. Excellent. A. That makes sense? I guess consistency is the key. Perfect. B. Absolutely. There is no doubt that small daily steps lead to big results. Wonderful. This type of natural exchange is the heart of advanced fluency. When we think about advanced English fluency, one area that truly shows your level is how you handle opinions and arguments. At C1, you should be able to give your opinion clearly, support it with reasons, and also respond to different points of view. This skill is important not only in academic discussions, but also in daily conversations where you want to express yourself confidently and logically. For example, instead of simply saying, "I agree," you can expand. "I completely agree with that point because I think it highlights the importance of daily practice." Instead of just saying, "I disagree," you could say, "I see where you're coming from, but I think we need to look at it from another angle." Notice how this style keeps the conversation polite, respectful, and fluent. You're not just giving a short answer, you're creating dialogue. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. "I completely agree with that point because I think it highlights the importance of daily practice." Good. "I see where you're coming from, but I think we need to look at it from another angle." Excellent. This is the type of advanced interaction that will make you sound confident and natural in English. At C1, you should also become comfortable with speculation and hypothesis. That means you can talk about possibilities, predictions, and imagined situations. For example, if I had more free time, I would definitely learn another language. Or, it's likely that technology will continue to change how we communicate. These sentences show flexibility with conditionals and modal verbs, which are essential at an advanced level. Let's shadow a few together. Repeat. If I had more free time, I would definitely learn another language. Good. It's likely that technology will continue to change how we communicate. Excellent. Suppose we didn't have the internet. How would people learn English? Perfect. You see how speculation keeps the conversation rich and dynamic. Another important skill is persuasion. Advanced speakers can persuade without being pushy by using polite, convincing language. For example, instead of saying, "You should do this," you could say, "Have you considered trying this method? It might really help you improve." Or, "From my experience, this approach works very effectively, and I'd recommend giving it a try." These phrases sound friendly, but also persuasive, which is exactly what you want in daily life. Practice with me. Repeat. Have you considered trying this method? It might really help you improve. Good. From my experience, this approach works very effectively, and I'd recommend giving it a try. Excellent. Persuasion is not about forcing your idea. It's about presenting it clearly and inviting others to see your perspective. Let's talk about discourse length. At C1, fluency is not just about short sentences, it's about building longer, connected responses that sound natural. For example, if someone asks you, "What's your favorite book?" Instead of answering with just the title, you could say, "My favorite book is Pride and Prejudice. I love it because the characters feel very real and the themes are still relevant today. Every time I read it, I discover something new about relationships, society, or personal growth. It's a book that stays with me." Notice how that answer is much more advanced than just saying the title. Let's shadow this. Repeat. My favorite book is Pride and Prejudice. I love it because the characters feel very real and the themes are still relevant today. Good. Every time I read it, I discover something new about relationships, society, or personal growth. Excellent. It's a book that stays with me. Perfect. With longer responses, you show fluency and control of ideas. Advanced speakers also use rhetorical questions to engage listeners. These are questions you don't really expect an answer to, but they make your speaking more dynamic. For example, who doesn't want to speak English fluently? Or, isn't it true that daily habits shape our success? These questions keep your listener interested and add rhythm to your speech. Let's practice. Repeat. Who doesn't want to speak English fluently? Good. Isn't it true that daily habits shape our success? Excellent. Use rhetorical questions in your practice, and you'll notice your speaking sounds more alive and persuasive. At this level, you should also work on precision with complex grammar structures. For example, relative clauses help you add detail without breaking the flow. Instead of two short sentences like, "I met a teacher, she was very inspiring," you can combine them. "I met a teacher who was very inspiring," or, with advanced phrasing, I met a teacher who, despite having little time, always found a way to encourage her students. These structures add depth and make your fluency smoother. Shadow with me. Repeat. I met a teacher who was very inspiring. Good. I met a teacher who, despite having little time, always found a way to encourage her students. Excellent. The more you practice these structures, the more natural they will become in your daily speaking. Let's add another advanced feature, inversion for emphasis. Inversion is when you change the word order for a stronger effect. For example, never have I seen such dedication, or rarely do people realize how much effort it takes to be fluent. These structures sound sophisticated and show advanced control of English. Practice with me. Repeat. Never have I seen such dedication. Good. Rarely do people realize how much effort it takes to be fluent. Excellent. Only then did I understand the importance of daily practice. Perfect. These patterns are powerful tools for advanced fluency. At C1, you should also be comfortable with abstract discussion. That means talking about ideas, concepts, and opinions beyond everyday life. For example, freedom of speech is essential for a healthy society, although it sometimes creates conflicts. Or, success can mean different things to different people. Some see it as wealth, others as personal fulfillment. Being able to discuss abstract ideas shows high-level thinking and language control. Let's shadow these. Repeat. Freedom of speech is essential for a healthy society, although it sometimes creates conflicts. Good. Success can mean different things to different people. Some see it as wealth, others as personal fulfillment. Excellent. Practicing abstract discussion pushes you beyond simple topics and deepens your fluency. Another crucial element is intonation. Intonation is the rise and fall of your voice, and it carries meaning beyond the words themselves. For example, say, "You're coming." Flat tone sounds uncertain, but if you rise at the end, "You're coming," it becomes a question. If you rise and then fall, "You're coming," it becomes enthusiastic. Advanced speakers use intonation to express emotion, clarify meaning, and engage listeners. Let's practice. Repeat. You're coming. Good. You're coming? Excellent. You're coming. Perfect. By changing intonation, you change the feeling completely, even though the words are the same. At C1, mastering intonation is a sign of real fluency. Finally, for this section, let's combine everything into a short practice conversation. I'll play both sides, but you shadow each line after me. Ready? A. What do you think makes someone fluent in English? Good. B. Well, that's an interesting question. Let me think. To be honest, I believe fluency is about being able to express yourself clearly, even when you don't know every word. Excellent. A. I see your point, but don't you think vocabulary is the most important part? Good. B. I see where you're coming from, but I'd argue that rhythm and confidence are equally important. Excellent. A. That makes sense. Rarely do people mention rhythm, but it's true. Perfect. B. Exactly. In other words, fluency is not perfection, it's communication. Wonderful. This is advanced conversation in action. At this point in your fluency journey, it's important to focus on nuance. Nuance is the ability to capture small differences in meaning, emotion, or tone. Advanced speakers don't just say happy or sad. They choose words like content, thrilled, delighted, or disappointed, frustrated, heartbroken. Each carries a slightly different feeling. By learning to select these subtle variations, you make your English richer and more precise. Let's practice. Repeat after me. She was content with the results. Good. He was thrilled to hear the good news. Excellent. They were disappointed after the match. Perfect. She felt heartbroken when her friend moved away. Wonderful. Notice how each word paints a different emotional picture. This is the kind of depth that makes your English sound truly advanced. Nuance also applies to politeness strategies. At C1, you don't just say, "Give me that." You soften your language. "Could you pass me that, please?" Or, in formal settings, "Would you mind passing me that?" These small adjustments show cultural awareness and fluency. English communication is often about balance, being clear but also polite and respectful. Practice with me. Repeat. "Could you pass me that, please?" Good. "Would you mind passing me that?" Excellent. By choosing these forms, you not only sound fluent, but also considerate, which is highly valued in English communication. Another hallmark of advanced English is the ability to emphasize or downplay information depending on your purpose. For example, if you want to highlight something, you might say, "What's most important here is," or "The key point I want to stress is." If you want to reduce the importance, you could say, "It's not a big deal," or "It's just a minor issue." This ability to shift focus is very powerful in both professional and personal conversations. Repeat after me. What's most important here is building consistency. Good. The key point I want to stress is daily practice. Excellent. It's not a big deal. Mistakes are part of learning. Perfect. It's just a minor issue. Nothing to worry about. Excellent. This control shows you are not only fluent, but also strategic with your language. At the advanced level, another feature you should master is register shifting during the same conversation. For example, you might start formally in a work meeting. "I would like to propose an alternative strategy." Later, when chatting casually with the same colleagues, you shift. "Honestly, I think this idea will work best for us." This ability to move between styles naturally demonstrates high fluency and social awareness. Let's shadow both styles. Repeat. "I would like to propose an alternative strategy." Good. "Honestly, I think this idea will work best for us." Excellent. Practice noticing when to adjust your register. It will make your English adaptable in real-world contexts. C1 fluency also involves mastering concession. This is when you acknowledge the other person's point before adding your own. For example, "I agree that practice is important, although I believe quality is just as essential." Or, You make a good point, but we should also consider other factors. Concession makes your language sound balanced, thoughtful, and advanced. Practice with me. Repeat. I agree that practice is important, although I believe quality is just as essential. Good. You make a good point, but we should also consider other factors. Excellent. This technique keeps conversations respectful and flowing. At this stage, you should also focus on fluency with phrasal verbs at an advanced level. Many learners stop practicing phrasal verbs once they reach intermediate, but at C1, they are essential for sounding natural. For example, to carry out, to complete, to bring up, to mention, to cut back on, to reduce, to look forward to anticipate. These are everywhere in daily English, and mastering them helps you fit smoothly into conversations. Let's shadow a few sentences. Repeat. The researchers carried out an important study. Good. She brought up an interesting question. Excellent. I need to cut back on my screen time. Perfect. I'm looking forward to our next lesson. Wonderful. Practicing phrasal verbs regularly ensures you sound less textbook-like and more natural. Another element of C1 fluency is expressing degrees of certainty. You should be able to say how sure you are about something. For example, I'm absolutely certain. I'm fairly sure. It seems likely. It's doubtful. There's a slight chance. These phrases show advanced control and make your communication more precise. Repeat after me. I'm absolutely certain this method works. Good. I'm fairly sure he'll join us later. Excellent. It seems likely that we'll finish on time. Perfect. It's doubtful the meeting will end early. Excellent. There's a slight chance of rain tomorrow. Wonderful. With this skill, you can adapt your tone to match the situation accurately. At C1, fluency also means you can navigate disagreement without sounding rude. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," you could say, "I see your point, but I'm not entirely convinced." Or, "That's interesting, although I'd interpret it differently." This style helps you participate in discussions confidently while keeping relationships positive. Let's practice. Repeat. I see your point, but I'm not entirely convinced. Good. That's interesting, although I'd interpret it differently. Excellent. This way, you maintain fluency while showing respect for others' views. Fluency at this level also involves abstract connectors such as, in the long run, all things considered, from a broader perspective, to some extent. These phrases allow you to step back and give a higher-level opinion, which is useful in debates, presentations, or reflective conversations. Practice with me. Repeat. In the long run, consistent effort pays off. Good. All things considered, the decision was reasonable. Excellent. From a broader perspective, language learning is about connecting with people. Perfect. To some extent, mistakes are actually useful for progress. Wonderful. These expressions give your English depth and sophistication. Let's do a short advanced conversation to put all these elements together. Shadow each line with me. A. Would you say practice is more important than talent? Good. B. Well, I agree that talent plays a role, although I believe consistent practice is the real key. Excellent. A. That's interesting, but don't you think natural ability makes things easier? Good. B. You make a good point, but in the long run, persistence is what truly leads to success. Excellent. A. I see your point. It's doubtful anyone can succeed without hard work. Perfect. B. Exactly. There is no doubt that practice shapes fluency. Wonderful. This is what advanced interaction looks like: respectful, thoughtful, and fluent. Now let's focus for a moment on fluency strategies for professional contexts. In job interviews, meetings, or presentations, advanced speakers use phrases that make their speech clear and confident. For example, let me clarify that point, or to summarize our discussion, or what I'd like to highlight is. These professional markers help you sound organized and persuasive. Practice with me. Repeat. Let me clarify that point. Good. To summarize our discussion, practice is essential for fluency. Excellent. What I'd like to highlight is the importance of confidence. Perfect. These are the kinds of phrases that will make your English stand out in formal contexts. At this level, you should also master approximation. That means you can describe something even if you don't know the exact detail. For example, it's around 20 minutes away. She's in her early 30s. It cost roughly $100. These phrases show flexibility. You don't freeze if you don't have the exact number or word. You keep speaking fluently. Repeat after me. It's around 20 minutes away. Good. She's in her early 30s. Excellent. It cost roughly $100. Perfect. Approximations keep the flow of your speaking natural and smooth. Finally, in this section, let's return to idiomatic fluency. Advanced English is full of idioms, and while you don't need to memorize them all, knowing how to use some naturally makes your speech engaging. For example, to break the ice means to start a conversation in a friendly way. To go the extra mile means to put in extra effort. To be in hot water means to be in trouble. To call it a day means to stop working for now. Practice shadowing with me. Repeat. She told a joke to break the ice at the meeting. Good. He always goes the extra mile for his clients. Excellent. I was in hot water after missing the deadline. Perfect. Let's call it a day and continue tomorrow. Excellent. These idioms will help you sound more natural and advanced. At this stage of your fluency training, it's time to practice flexibility with style and tone. Advanced English is not just about what you say, but how you say it. For example, imagine 2 ways of declining an invitation. You could say directly, "I can't come," which is clear, but perhaps too short. Or in a more natural way, you could say, "I'd love to join you, but unfortunately, I already have plans." The second version communicates the same idea, but sounds warmer and more fluent. Let's shadow this together. Repeat, "I can't come." Good. I'd love to join you, but unfortunately I already have plans. Excellent. This type of stylistic variation makes your English fit smoothly into any situation. C1 speakers also use advanced modifiers to add precision. Instead of just saying, "It's important," you might say, "It's absolutely vital." Instead of saying, "She's tired," you could say, "She's completely exhausted." Words like utterly, deeply, highly, extremely, strongly, perfectly allow you to create emphasis in a natural way. They take your English beyond the basic level. Repeat after me. It's absolutely vital to practice regularly. Good. She's completely exhausted after the long day. Excellent. I strongly believe consistency is the key. Perfect. He's highly respected in his field. Wonderful. These modifiers show control and make your speech more powerful. Another aspect of advanced fluency is cultural awareness. English is spoken worldwide, and phrases that sound polite in one culture may sound too direct in another. For example, in many English-speaking contexts, it's common to use indirect requests like, "Would you mind opening the window?" instead of "open the window." This is not just about grammar. It's about understanding the social rhythm of English communication. By practicing these forms, you'll sound more natural in international settings. Let's practice. Repeat. "Would you mind helping me with this?" Good. "Could you possibly explain that again?" Excellent. These indirect forms show advanced politeness, which is highly valued. At C1 level, it's also important to practice expressing contrast and balance. For example, you might say, "On the one hand, learning vocabulary is essential, but on the other hand, practice with real conversation is equally important." Or, "Although English grammar can be complex, it's also what makes the language rich and expressive." These balanced statements show higher-level thinking and language skills. Practice with me. Repeat. "On the one hand, grammar is important, but on the other hand, fluency matters more in conversation." Good. Although English grammar can be complex, it's also rich and expressive. Excellent. This balance makes your English persuasive and advanced. Let's now focus on advanced discourse markers that add structure to your speaking. Phrases like, "having said that," "at the end of the day," "to be fair," "the fact remains that," and "the bottom line is," make your conversation sound natural and well-organized. They are common in everyday English, and mastering them will push your fluency forward. Repeat after me. "Having said that, I still believe practice is the best method." Good. At the end of the day, it's your consistency that matters. Excellent. To be fair, grammar also plays a role. Perfect. The fact remains that fluency takes time. Wonderful. The bottom line is, daily effort leads to success. Excellent. These markers create flow and confidence in your speaking. C1 fluency also involves self-correction. Even advanced speakers sometimes make small mistakes, but they correct themselves naturally. For example, I saw him yesterday, or She has finished her work. Instead of freezing, you simply adjust smoothly. This shows confidence and maturity in your language use. Practice with me. Repeat. I saw him yesterday. Good. She has finished her work. Excellent. Notice how the correction is quick and natural. That's exactly how fluent speakers do it. Let's talk about abstract thinking again, but this time with comparisons and metaphors. Advanced speakers often use metaphors to explain ideas more clearly. For example, learning English is like planting a tree. You need patience, care, and consistency before you see results. Or, fluency is like a river. It flows naturally once you remove the obstacles. These comparisons make your speaking vivid and memorable. Repeat after me. Learning English is like planting a tree. You need patience, care, and consistency. Good. Fluency is like a river. It flows naturally once you remove the obstacles. Excellent. By practicing metaphors, you'll develop a style that captivates listeners. Another crucial element of advanced fluency is summarizing. When you're in a discussion, you should be able to summarize the main idea before moving on. For example, so what we're saying is that practice and confidence are equally important. Or, in short, fluency comes from using English daily, not just studying it. Summarizing shows you're following the conversation and helps you guide it smoothly. Let's shadow together. Repeat. So what we're saying is that practice and confidence are equally important. Good. In short, fluency comes from using English daily, not just studying it. Excellent. This technique keeps your speaking clear and advanced. At this point, let's combine several features into a mini practice dialogue. Repeat after me. A. Although grammar is essential, it's not everything in fluency. Good. B. That's true, but at the end of the day, confidence is what really matters. Excellent. Ace, to be fair, vocabulary also plays a role. Good. B. Absolutely, but the bottom line is you need to practice daily. Excellent. This short exchange uses advanced connectors, balance, and persuasion naturally. Another advanced feature to practice is showing empathy in conversations. Fluent speakers connect with others emotionally. For example, I completely understand how you feel, or that must have been really challenging for you. Empathy makes your communication not only advanced, but also deeply human. Practice with me. Repeat. I completely understand how you feel. Good. That must have been really challenging for you. Excellent. Using these expressions builds connection and trust in conversations. Let's now move to advanced expressions of preference and attitude. Instead of just saying, I like it, you might say, I'm particularly fond of it. Or, I have a strong preference for this approach. Instead of saying, I don't like it, you could say, I'm not especially keen on it. Or, it doesn't really appeal to me. These phrases elevate your language and make your opinions sound refined. Shadow with me. Repeat. I'm particularly fond of classical music. Good. I have a strong preference for morning study. Excellent. I'm not especially keen on spicy food. Perfect. It doesn't really appeal to me. Wonderful. With these phrases, your opinions sound advanced and sophisticated. Another useful area is fluency with cause and effect language. Advanced speakers can explain reasons and results clearly. For example, because of her dedication, she achieved fluency quickly. Or, due to the heavy rain, the event was cancelled. You can also use more advanced connectors like as a result, therefore, consequently, hence. These words add logical flow to your speaking. Practice with me. Repeat. Because of her dedication, she achieved fluency quickly. Good. Due to the heavy rain, the event was cancelled. Excellent. As a result, his confidence improved. Perfect. Therefore, daily practice is essential. Excellent. Consequently, she was able to pass the exam. Wonderful. Using these connectors shows clear, advanced reasoning in your English. Finally, for this section, let's practice expanding your responses again. This time, imagine you're asked, "Do you enjoy learning English?" A short answer might be, "Yes, I do." But at C1, you should expand. "Yes, I do. I find it fascinating because every new word or phrase feels like opening a new door into a different culture and way of thinking. It's challenging at times, but that's exactly why it's rewarding." Notice how this answer is more advanced, expressive, and engaging. Let's shadow this. Repeat. "Yes, I do. I find it fascinating because every new word or phrase feels like opening a new door into a different culture and way of thinking." Good. It's challenging at times, but that's exactly why it's rewarding. Excellent. This type of extended response demonstrates true advanced fluency. One of the most impressive signs of advanced fluency is your ability to debate and discuss topics critically. At C1 level, you don't only share opinions, you also support them with reasons, examples, and contrasts. For instance, instead of just saying technology is good, you could say, "Technology has many benefits, such as making communication faster and improving access to information. However, it also creates challenges, like reducing face-to-face interaction and increasing distractions." This type of balanced statement shows maturity in both thought and language. Let's shadow this together. Repeat. Technology has many benefits, such as making communication faster and improving access to information. Good. However, it also creates challenges, like reducing face-to-face interaction and increasing distractions. Excellent. See how this style presents a clear and advanced perspective? At this level, it's also important to practice advanced questioning. Instead of asking simple yes or no questions, you should be able to ask open-ended, thought-provoking ones. For example, what do you think are the long-term effects of social media on communication? Or, how would you compare traditional education with online learning? These types of questions open the door to deeper discussion and keep conversations flowing. Practice with me. Repeat. What do you think are the long-term effects of social media on communication? Good. How would you compare traditional education with online learning? Excellent. Using advanced questions makes you sound engaged, curious, and fluent. Another sign of C1 fluency is your ability to hedge with style. Hedging means showing caution or uncertainty without sounding weak. Phrases like, "It seems that," "There's a chance that," "As far as I can tell," or "From what I've observed," give you flexibility when you don't want to sound too direct. For example, "As far as I can tell, learning in groups seems to motivate people more." This way, you give your opinion, but leave room for discussion. Shadow with me. Repeat. It seems that daily practice really builds fluency. Good. There's a chance that new technology will replace some traditional methods. Excellent. As far as I can tell, people learn faster when they enjoy the process. Perfect. These expressions keep your English sophisticated and polite. At C1, another valuable skill is anticipation. That means you prepare for possible responses and adapt quickly. For example, if you're giving a presentation, you might say, "Some people might argue that practice is boring, but I believe it's the most effective way to progress." By addressing possible objections, you sound confident and advanced. Let's practice. Repeat. Some people might argue that practice is boring, but I believe it's the most effective way to progress. Good. Others may say vocabulary is more important, but I'd argue that rhythm and confidence are essential too. Excellent. Anticipating counter-arguments shows advanced control and fluency. Another advanced feature is expressing degrees of probability. You can use phrases like, "It's highly probable," "It's unlikely," "It's almost certain," "There's little doubt," "There's every likelihood." These help you sound precise when discussing possibilities. For example, "It's highly probable that consistent practice leads to fluency," or "It's unlikely that someone can improve without speaking regularly." Repeat after me. It's highly probable that consistent practice leads to fluency. Good. It's unlikely that someone can improve without speaking regularly. Excellent. There's little doubt that confidence grows through speaking. Perfect. There's every likelihood that listening daily will improve comprehension. Wonderful. These structures make your English advanced and clear. At this point, it's also useful to refine how you give examples. Instead of only saying, "For example," you can vary your expressions. For instance, "To illustrate this," such as, "namely." This variety prevents repetition and keeps your speaking interesting. For example, there are many ways to practice fluency, such as shadowing podcasts, recording yourself, or joining speaking groups. Doesn't that sound more advanced? Practice with me. Repeat. For instance, daily practice builds confidence. Good. To illustrate this, imagine someone shadowing every day for 6 months. Excellent. There are many activities, such as reading aloud and practicing dialogues, that help fluency. Perfect. Varying your examples strengthens your fluency and style. Another essential element is fluency with concessions and contrasts. We touched on this earlier, but at C1, you should be able to layer them naturally. For example, although I see the advantages of online learning, I believe face-to-face interaction remains essential for fluency. Or, while grammar knowledge is important, it should not stop you from speaking freely. These balanced statements keep your speaking advanced and persuasive. Let's shadow this. Repeat. Although I see the advantages of online learning, I believe face-to-face interaction remains essential for fluency. Good. While grammar knowledge is important, it should not stop you from speaking freely. Excellent. Notice how balance creates sophistication in your language. At this level, let's also focus on advanced connectors that create flow in presentations and discussions. Phrases like, with this in mind, taking everything into account, in light of this, on reflection, in retrospect, show high-level control. For example, with this in mind, it's clear that practice is the foundation of fluency. Or, taking everything into account, fluency is about confidence, rhythm, and daily use. Repeat after me. With this in mind, it's clear that practice is the foundation of fluency. Good. Taking everything into account, fluency is about confidence, rhythm, and daily use. Excellent. In light of this, we should focus more on real conversations. Perfect. On reflection, I realize I learned more from speaking than from grammar books. Wonderful. Advanced connectors guide your listener through your ideas smoothly. Another skill for C1 learners is building fluency with academic-style vocabulary. Words like significant, considerable, substantial, fundamental, complex, challenging, help you sound advanced when discussing serious topics. For example, a significant number of learners struggle with listening comprehension. Or, fluency is a fundamental skill for professional success. Practice with me. Repeat. A significant number of learners struggle with listening comprehension. Good. Fluency is a fundamental skill for professional success. Excellent. It's a considerable challenge to practice daily, but it pays off. Perfect. The process is complex, but manageable with consistency. Wonderful. These words show control and maturity in your speaking. Let's put several of these skills into a short advanced dialogue. Repeat after me. A. Some people say that daily practice is boring. Good. B. That's true to some extent, although I'd argue it's highly effective for progress. Excellent. A. In light of this, do you think vocabulary should be the focus instead? Good. B. Well, while vocabulary is essential, it should not stop learners from speaking freely. Excellent. A. Taking everything into account, consistency seems to be the real secret. Good. B. Exactly. There's little doubt that fluency is built step by step. Perfect. This is C1 interaction in action. At this point, let me gently remind you, if you're finding this lesson helpful, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll stay updated with daily practice sessions designed to take your fluency to the next level. Your support helps us continue creating lessons that guide you every step of the way. Now, let's practice speaking with advanced persuasion. In professional or social contexts, persuasion is often subtle, polite, and structured. For example, I strongly believe this approach is effective because it combines listening and speaking practice. Or, if you think about it, shadowing is like training with a coach. You copy, repeat, and gradually improve. These persuasive statements are convincing without sounding forceful. Repeat after me. I strongly believe this approach is effective because it combines listening and speaking practice. Good. If you think about it, shadowing is like training with a coach. You copy, repeat, and gradually improve. Excellent. This type of language persuades naturally and fluently. Finally, for this section, let's look at expressing conditions with nuance. Instead of only using basic if sentences, advanced speakers add variation. Provided that, as long as, in the event that, unless. For example, provided that you practice daily, your fluency will grow quickly, or unless you use English regularly, it's hard to improve. Practice with me. Repeat. Provided that you practice daily, your fluency will grow quickly. Good. As long as you listen and speak consistently, you'll build confidence. Excellent. In the event that you miss a day, don't give up. Just continue the next day. Perfect. Unless you use English regularly, it's hard to improve. Wonderful. These structures make your English flexible and precise. As we come toward the final stage of this masterclass, let's look at one of the most powerful abilities of an advanced English speaker. Flexibility of perspective. At C1 level, you should be able to view a topic from multiple angles and express those viewpoints clearly. For example, if someone asks, "Is social media good or bad?" you don't just give a single answer. You might say, on the one hand, social media connects people and spreads information quickly. On the other hand, it can also spread misinformation and create stress. This ability to weigh both sides shows depth of thought and fluency in language. Let's shadow together. Repeat. On the one hand, social media connects people and spreads information quickly. Good. On the other hand, it can also spread misinformation and create stress. Excellent. This kind of balanced thinking shows advanced communication skills. Another advanced feature is summarizing complex discussions. Imagine you're in a group debate and people have shared many different opinions. You can step in and summarize. So far, we've discussed both the advantages and disadvantages of social media. The advantages include quick communication and global connection, while the disadvantages are stress and misinformation. In short, the impact is mixed, and balance is essential. Summarizing at this level shows leadership and fluency. Practice shadowing with me. Repeat. So far, we've discussed both the advantages and disadvantages of social media. Good. The advantages include quick communication and global connection, while the disadvantages are stress and misinformation. Excellent. In short, the impact is mixed and balance is essential. Perfect. Notice how this makes you sound clear, confident, and advanced. At C1 level, another skill is fluency with abstract nouns. Words like motivation, determination, creativity, resilience, adaptability are used in advanced discussions. For example, motivation is what pushes learners to start, but resilience is what keeps them going. Or, adaptability is a vital skill in both language learning and professional life. These words allow you to discuss deeper ideas with sophistication. Let's practice. Repeat. Motivation is what pushes learners to start, but resilience is what keeps them going. Good. Adaptability is a vital skill in both language learning and professional life. Excellent. Using abstract nouns naturally is a mark of advanced fluency. At this stage, you should also practice advanced emphasis structures. For example, what really matters is consistency, or the thing I want to stress is confidence. These sentence patterns highlight your main point and keep your listener engaged. They are simple, but they sound strong and advanced. Practice with me. Repeat. What really matters is consistency. Good. The thing I want to stress is confidence. Excellent. Use these emphasis structures whenever you want your main idea to stand out. Let's now talk about building advanced conversational flow. Conversations at this level are not just question and answer. They involve sharing, responding, expanding, and inviting. For example, that's a good point. It reminds me of something I experienced last year. Or, interesting idea. Can you tell me more about that? This kind of response shows you're listening, thinking, and contributing naturally. Practice shadowing. Repeat. That's a good point. It reminds me of something I experienced last year. Good. Interesting idea. Can you tell me more about that? Excellent. These phrases build natural flow in conversation. Another feature of advanced fluency is paraphrasing to check understanding. You might say, "So what you're saying is," or, "If I understand correctly, you mean." This shows you're engaged and ensures the message is clear. For example, "So what you're saying is that daily practice builds both fluency and confidence." Or, "If I understand correctly, you believe vocabulary is more important than grammar." These checks keep the conversation smooth and professional. Repeat after me. So what you're saying is that daily practice builds both fluency and confidence. Good. If I understand correctly, you believe vocabulary is more important than grammar. Excellent. These strategies are highly valued in academic and business communication. Let's also highlight advanced concession phrases. You've practiced some already, but at C1 you can use more elegant ones like granted, admittedly. That may be true, but while I acknowledge. For example, granted, grammar is useful, but fluency comes from speaking. Or, admittedly, daily practice can be difficult, but it's still the most effective method. These expressions show balance and maturity. Practice with me. Repeat. Granted, grammar is useful, but fluency comes from speaking. Good. Admittedly, daily practice can be difficult, but it's still the most effective method. Excellent. These phrases make you sound thoughtful and advanced. Another skill for C1 speakers is giving nuanced evaluations. Instead of just saying something is good or bad, you might say, "It's beneficial overall, but it has some drawbacks." Or, "The results are promising, though not entirely conclusive." This type of evaluation demonstrates both linguistic and intellectual sophistication. Repeat after me. It's beneficial overall, but it has some drawbacks. Good. The results are promising, though not entirely conclusive. Excellent. This type of nuance separates advanced fluency from simpler speech. At this point, let's combine everything into one last extended practice dialogue. Shadow each line carefully. A. What's your opinion on learning through podcasts? Good. B. Well, it's beneficial overall because you practice listening and shadowing. Granted, it's not always interactive, but it builds fluency step by step. Excellent. A. That may be true, but don't you think direct conversation is more effective? Good. B. Admittedly, conversation is powerful, although podcasts are still useful for rhythm and vocabulary. Excellent. A2. Interesting. So what you're saying is that both methods are important, depending on the learner. Perfect. B. Exactly. What really matters is consistency. Wonderful. This type of exchange shows advanced fluency in action. Before we close, let's focus on motivation. At C1 level, many learners face plateaus. They feel their progress slows down. But remember, fluency is not about never making mistakes. It's about keeping the flow. Every conversation, every practice session, every new phrase brings you closer to mastery. Even when progress feels slow, you are still moving forward. Think of fluency as climbing a mountain. You may take small steps, but each one brings you closer to the top. Let's practice a motivational shadowing. Repeat. Fluency is not about perfection, it's about communication. Good. Every step I take in English brings me closer to mastery. Excellent. Consistency is the secret to growth. Perfect. Keep these affirmations in mind whenever you practice. And finally, I want to leave you with encouragement. You are capable of advanced fluency. You already have the tools, and now it's about sharpening them, practicing daily, and trusting yourself. Remember, every conversation is an opportunity to grow. Every mistake is a chance to learn. Every practice session builds your confidence. You are not just learning English, you are becoming someone who can express ideas, share stories, and connect with people all over the world. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I'm so proud of the effort you've made, and I hope you feel motivated to keep practicing every single day. With dedication, fluency is not just possible, it's inevitable. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss future lessons. Keep practicing, keep believing, and I'll see you in the next session.